Hi, I'm Mark with the Watch Society, and today with me is Frank Fenello.
Hi, everybody.
Of the Atlanta Watch Society and the General Watch Society, says a member of the Atlanta branch.
Yeah.
And today we're going through a collector's journey. How you got into watches, what brought you as part of the Watch Society, and a look at your collection in general.
Sounds great.
So I always like to say when we start about watch collecting, the best place to start is at the beginning. And with you, that's a little unusual. Because most people, when we're talking about our collections and our collection journey, it's years or decades, or you've seriously been collecting for a year.
Yeah, this month is a year.
And I think to say you dived into the deep end.
Yeah, I joke, I'm obsessive compulsive. I used to say a little bit, but that's like being a little bit pregnant. So yes, I am obsessive compulsive, and I got into this, and now there's nothing else I think about besides my job, if work's listening. All right.
Important thing, it helps pay for the watches.
That's right, exactly.
One without the other, right? So of the watches we have in front of us, all but one have been purchased in the past year.
Yes.
So that gives an idea of how deep you've gone in. And this isn't like your full collection as far as what you have or what you've had.
Exactly.
Because you spent a lot of time flipping in order to get to where you are now. And I'm sure that this will change in 6 months of what you currently have.
Yeah. Because I love my wife, and she said I can buy as many watches as I want as long as I fund them by buying and selling other watches. So it makes it kind of a game, though. Like now I'm like always looking for like, where can I get learning about the watches. I'm looking about pricing and figure out what the best deals are. So it's kind of exciting.
And I know that there are some people who look at that and be like, that's not how you should collect. First off, if you're that person, go fly a kite. I say that in all honesty because everyone should collect the way they want to collect. I always say there's two rules. You buy what you like, not what someone else is like, and buy what you can afford. If you follow that, then there's nothing wrong with how you collect. It's your enjoyment. It's your money. It's your time. What do you want to do with it? Do it.
I agree with that. And, for me, it was because I'm obsessive compulsive. If I didn't do it this way, I would still buy the number of watches that we have, but I'd be living alone and my children would be mad and they wouldn't be in college. So this was a way to still enjoy it and not have to, deal with the obsessive compulsive part harming us. So it made it into a hobby and made it fun.
Oh, it's
great. Exciting.
And I will say that personally, I am the exact opposite. I have sold one watch and I have just hoarded everything. The dragon's hoard of just keeping everything. But I'm not saying which way is better or healthier. I certainly need to eliminate some. I have too many watches. They don't get enough love. I probably need to sell half of them, to be honest. And that would make
we
my
can
wife
look
happy.
at that afterwards and see what you have. And, maybe we can work out a deal here.
Because I know there's watches I want, and it would be a lot easier to get them if I could liquidate some of the ones I have.
That's exactly and what I've noticed is I've been over the last year, because it's been a whole year, I am slowing down on the number of ones that I'm trading out. And so when I was early and I had limited funds, it was definitely a lot of buying and selling. But now I'm starting to see some stability in the collection. There are some here that I would absolutely not get rid of just because there's usually a story behind them that makes them important to me. And that's why.
I think that's what changed. Not only is that the story start changing, but you also start developing your taste.
Yes.
So what you start with and what you end with are rarely the same thing.
That's so true. As we go through this, you'll see that the watches that I was in love with, I don't even have anymore. Because as I learned more, I still love those watches. It just wasn't my first choice anymore. And so I went on a kick for a while. It was only Italian-made watches. So
which is such an interesting niche.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a Unimatic or no? Unimatic's French.
I had several U-boats. Unimatic is Italian.
It's Italian.
Yeah.
I always forget.
And I still have some Venez. I don't know how you say it.
Oh, don't look at me.
It begins with a V. And so, but I have two of theirs. I have a bronze, and I have the Miyota, the black paint, that absorbs all the light watch. It's kind of a dressier watch. I forget what you called it on the dial, but it absorbs all lights. There's no refractive.
Well, it's not the Vanta Black because that's only Moser.
No, it's that. I think it's just. We'd have to look, but it is absolutely absorbs 99 point something.
There's a few others that do similar things. So
I have that, and that's really like a super nice Italian dress watch because it's very simple, but its dial on is beautiful.
So let's
bring that today.
Well, we have enough in front of us. Right. And let's start with the one that is not bought in the past year.
Okay.
This is kind of where you started your watch journey.
Yes.
How long ago?
So that has to be 30 plus years ago. I was on a cruise and I was like, oh, I'm going to buy. I was like my first real job kind of thing. And I was with some friends. I'm like, I'm going to buy a watch. And at the time, Tag was like blowing up. So I bought a Tag and I loved it.
Yeah, this is a Tag Heuer Professional. It's looks like from the Aqua Racer line.
Yeah, it's a quartz. It's not automatic. But when I was wearing that, I loved it. I wore it all the time. But now it's so small for me. I actually sized it for my wife to see if she liked it. But
I was gonna say that's a small wrist.
Yeah, no, I still have the link, so I was adjusting to see if she liked it or not.
I mean, it still fits in today's dive watch standards. It still looks good in my opinion. A lot of people start with Tag. It's a familiar brand. Mm-hmm. It's usually one you can find on cruise ships, and, Macy's or Nordstrom's, as well as in watch boutiques. It kind of straddles that line of high end. I don't want to say mall watch because that's not a mall watch. It just happens to be in malls. They're good watches.
Yeah,
and there's a reason why it still looks good. How many years later?
It has to be. Let me see. So at least 30 years ago.
Yeah, 30 years.
And I wore it every day for probably 5 years, so it held up incredibly well.
And it's interesting that you have one watch that's 30 years old. Everything else here under a year.
Yes. I did have two in between there that I had for a long time, but they were part of that buy-sell trade. And I can tell you the quick story how I got to those and how that kind of started even this discussion on watches.
Sure.
So when I was, my first son was being born, I gave my wife a push present. And then I'm like, well, I contributed to this. Right? So I'm like, I want something. So I wanted a watch. So we went to, at the time, Bailey Banks and Biddle, and they had, all these watches, automatics and quartzes. And so they're showing me all these Rolexes and dot watches. And I was like, I don't want what everybody else has. Like, so stupid. I should have bought a Rolex in hindsight. But anyways.
Monetarily.
But there was this Zenith that I absolutely loved. It was an El Primero flyback. It had a beautiful dial on it. And then they also had the new James Bond had come out in quartz from Omega.
The Omega Seamaster 300.
Yes. So I didn't understand why people wanted to wind a watch because I didn't know anything about watches, which I still thought was stupid. But I loved the Zenith enough that I said, all right, well, we ended up buying both. Okay. And
to be honest, that Omega is probably worth as much as it cost still.
Well, funny thing is, I've already sold it. And because I didn't have the papers anymore, I wore it. That's another one I wore every day. I honestly don't remember what I originally paid. It maybe got the original money back, but I did sell that one. And the thing I didn't like about the Zenith after I started wearing it, was that it had no lume. And I hated being out like at a restaurant or a movie or something and not being able to see the time. Because keep in mind, those were the only two watches I had. So, but then when the Apple Watch came out, they sat in my safe. I didn't wear them for 10 years. Like I totally forgot about it.
So, but eventually you went from wearing a mechanical watch to an Apple Watch and back to mechanical watches. Yeah.
So what happened there was I was on a boat with a friend of mine. He's like, wow, have you seen the price of tags and Rolexes? It's through the roof. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So like, of course I came back and I researched it and I'm like, holy cow, like this market's gone nuts. And of course, this is right before the crash last summer, I guess.
Yeah, about a year and a half ago.
So now I'm intrigued. So then my OCD kicks in, right? So now I'm researching the hell out of all the watches. So, going into that, I decided to sell those watches, and through a variety of different channels, I ended up with Audemars Piguet 26331 with a blue dial.
A little bit of a jump, but sure.
Yeah, and that was like my first kind of investment. So the difference, the Zenith still had a good value. The Omega, but that became my foundation, and that was my budget. So I've not spent another dollar of my own money since I did that. So that was my initial investment.
That's pretty good watch fund. Okay.
Yeah. So then I like started seeing all these other watches that I liked. And I'm like, well, here I am with this expensive Audemars Piguet, gorgeous watch, regret selling it. But at the time I was like, I'm have one watch and I have no budget. So I ended up selling that, made some money on it. And then that started the rest of this journey.
So for this, since there isn't so much of a time journey, we're going to go up the retail price food chain here.
Sure.
And we'll start with one of the most fun watches, which is the Casio that's made to look like a comic book. Yes. Straight out of a comic book.
Manga, Japanese manga, I think is what they call it, right?
Or manga.
Manga, I don't know. Don't forgive any pronunciations.
Watashi skoshi nihongo nashimasu, but it's been a while. It's been a long time since I've taken Japanese. Manga sounds right to me, but we'll just go with that. These were popular, but only in Japan.
Right. You can only get them originally in Japan.
Yeah, there's the white and the blue version.
Yes.
So it's a watch you can only find in Japan. How'd you get it for yourself?
So I was looking on eBay and that kind of stuff, and it was super expensive. They were going 3 times retail. So I ended up finding a Japanese auction site. And so I bid on it, had no reserve. And so I got it. That's probably the only watch here that I paid a little over retail, maybe $50.
That's considering the actual cost. That's because these are in the 150-ish range, 180. I always forget.
Yeah, I think they were originally like 2 something. I think I paid like 250 something, if I remember correctly. I love that watch.
Because Casio, between a basic edition, I think is about 100, and limited editions can get twice that. That's a pure fun watch.
It's so fun.
Your first G-Shock?
Yes. Well, probably my first G-Shock, but not my first Casio, because I did have calculator watches back in the 80s and all that other stuff. So yes, since my adult life, yes.
Now, there's a saying that usually says everybody eventually has to own a Speedmaster. And generally, I like that idea. But I think the true thing is every watch collector has a G-Shock at some point. It is the ultimate. It's fun.
It's fun.
It has history. It's rugged. It's the one you take out when you don't care. You don't want to beat it. You don't want to take a mechanical watch out and beat it up. Go hiking or something like that.
When I go to the range or things like that, where I don't want vibration or anything to affect it, things like that.
That's what it's built for.
Yep.
And I cannot imagine not having a G-Shock in the collection. I have too many. More than I need.
Now we're gonna look after the show, right? Okay. Anyways, we're gonna do some bartering here.
I have 11 G-Shocks. I know that already. Goodness. Yeah. Now 3 of them are actually worth some money because they're the John Mayers.
Okay.
So I have all 3 John Mayers, and I think together they're worth, like with box papers, they're worth like $1,000.
Really?
Because especially the first one's hard to get. I just realized I have an extra of the third one just sitting in the box.
You know you're buying too many watches when you forgot that you had one in a box.
I bought it at an employee discount. So I bought it when I worked at Hodinkee in an employee discount. So I bought that less expensively. So I was an extra one that I was going to either give to a friend or something like that. It's just sitting in the closet right now.
I'm a friend. Okay, anyway, so
it might go to the Christmas party as a raffle gift or something. I won the watch last year that we brought to the raffle party. I have a notice that we won.
I wasn't really a member of the society yet. So, because my journey into the society was a little interesting too. So,
well, why don't we? Let's keep going and get back to that. So, next is the Christopher Ward bronze Trident.
I love that watch.
And this is one that you didn't buy for yourself?
No. So so now October was the time frame I started to get interested. I started learning about Christopher Ward. And again, I like things that sometimes other people don't have. And I thought that was a great micro brand. It had enough reputation that I knew was pretty good. So my wife got that for me for Christmas last year. And I absolutely love that watch.
I love this watch. And this watch specifically is Mike Pearson, the North American rep for Christopher Ward, has sat right there. We did an interview.
Yeah.
And that's also the same watch he has.
Really?
Is the bronze Trident.
I love it.
So,
I love the one with the blue dials on my list next. But Christopher Ward is a phenomenal brand. They make some beautiful watches.
Great. We did a review of a couple of them, but the Bel Canto is one
that's on my list. But I don't like waiting, so I'm impatient.
I recommend a Bel Canto in the future.
Okay, it's on my list. It's definitely on my future.
Yeah, really, it's such a fun watch to have. But so we're moving on here to the next one, and we're starting to see a theme of dive watches being a primary.
I tend to like larger watches,
and dive watches tend to be
larger
because they're geared towards men more than women.
Right.
Larger wrists generally goes with it. And moving up actually, this is probably less than the Christopher Ward.
It is
the Zelos. And you like this for the dial.
Of all the watches I have, I think that is the prettiest dial of all of them. It's a blue meteorite dial, and in the sunlight, it is gorgeous. And I didn't know much about Zelos when I bought it. The build quality is phenomenal. I bought it pre-owned. I did have it serviced. It didn't cost much because it's pretty standard movement, and it runs great. And I just think it's gorgeous.
And Zelos is known for making tough watches, but having a lot of fun with the materials when it comes to the dials. But they've even made tantalum watches that nobody makes for a price that was obscenely cheap at the time. And they're $500 to $1,000.
Yeah, I think that one at retail when it first you can't buy it anymore. It's discontinued. But I think it was maybe $700 to $800, $900 maybe. I think I paid $500 on secondary market. It was phenomenal. It didn't have a single scratch on it. It just needed servicing because it was a little older.
And which eventually every watch is going to.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I want to make sure the seals were good if I did go in the water. Not that I dive, but I do go in the water occasionally. So.
All right. And it's this now we have the big jump.
Okay.
So those were the micro brands.
Yes.
That's, kind of the watches that are a little easier to get into watches with. But within a year, we're jumping up and we're going to jump to the Tudor.
Yes.
This is our founder, John Carlo's favorite watch of all time.
No, not. Only because it's not his team. So
let's start with it's the Inter Milan Tudor Black Bay 58.
This is actually yes. Wait, is it the AC?
No,
it's Inter Milan. Okay,
it is not AC Milan.
Sorry, GC. So it's the Inter Milan, and it's gorgeous. This has a blue ombre dial, but the best part of the story, I will never sell this watch. Is so my son paid for a trip for himself to go to Italy this summer, and this was released only an Italian release watch, and so I gave him 3 watches I wanted to buy, and if he could find me all 3, I would pay for his entire trip. But if he found one, I'd pay for his airfare. Okay, so now he's 18 years old. Now this is my younger son has no fear. So he went into every dealer at every city that he was in, and he's 18. So and he's traveling, and he's like not looking like he has the money to do this stuff, and saying I want to buy it for my dad, right? Like kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, the owner of a store in Florence took him seriously. I put a deposit down on it, and so I was able to get this watch probably about 2 weeks later.
That's awesome.
And that dealer in Florence, I probably bought. They're not all here, but I bought a couple other Tudors from him, and it was great to deal with. It was easy. I got the pink Tudor. I got the what was it? The Coke. Which one was the new one that came out? That was the Pepsi.
The Coke.
The Coke. I got the Coke. I got them all right as they came out, and he was a great guy to work with. I just haven't had a new one yet that I want to get.
Well, that's a lesson to dealers. Take everyone seriously that walks in. You never know.
Any salesperson, right? Anybody can be a buyer.
It's as a lesson learned, and it's also a reason why there's certain places I don't buy from.
Really?
I purposefully will walk into a new watch store not wearing a nice watch. I'll wear a micro brand.
Right.
I'll wear something that doesn't say I'm not wearing my Vacheron over. I want them to just treat me as is. I don't want that. I don't want any special
Right.
And to me, that's because if you don't treat me well like that, I don't want to deal with you.
I agree. It was funny when my dad was in sales his whole life. So when I turned 16, he said I could get a car, but he said I had to go negotiate the deal on my own. And if I could get the deal that for the money that he was willing to pay, he would come buy the car. So at 16 years old, I'm going into a car dealership saying I want to buy a car, and then my dad will come pay for it if we get to the right deal. 4 or 5 salespeople completely ignored me. And I was staying at the same dealership because I'm still looking around. The one guy comes over, and he must have been new because he probably didn't know that he shouldn't talk to me. And of course, that day, that guy sold a car. And so, but my dad wanted me to learn how to negotiate. He wanted me to feel confident doing that stuff. So he said, that's something you have to do your whole life. So,
there you go. So my next question is, what were the other 2 watches?
So the other one I do have, but he did not get it for me, which is the Bruce Wayne.
Okay.
And the other was, I can't remember now what the third one was. Oh, a titanium Yachtmaster.
Okay, so you sent him on Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
He came back with the one that might be possible.
Yes.
Okay.
But I will tell you that when he came back, he was still calling dealers that he met because I didn't give him a time frame. I didn't say it had to be in Italy. I just said, you find me these watches and I will pay for your trip. And he is my aggressive, like, go out there. He doesn't care. He'll just keep hunting. And
I mean, good job on the Tudor.
Yeah.
I would have been seriously floored if he got the Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
If he got the titanium yacht.
And this was when the
That would
Yachtmaster
be-
was going for like 40,000 on the secondary market.
Oh,
So,
yeah,
it was
that's-
crazy time frame.
You would not find that as an. If you found that, you are the luckiest person in the world. You found the new sales guy who didn't know he's not supposed to sell that watch.
Exactly.
That's the only hope you have.
That was the hope. But
it happens.
it happens. It happens all the time. That's actually a little bit of my journey too. Like how I was able to get some Rolexes. But
Well, I'll say, continuing on the Tudor, much to Giancarlo's chagrin, that's a beautiful watch.
thank you. It is gorgeous. It's one of my favorites.
I love the dial on it, and not many times has a big watch brand done a watch for a team. Now AC Milan, the other side of the rivalry, does have an Omega from 1999. So it's been a while. So both sides do have Tudor versus Omega, but big difference in time.
I know nothing about soccer or football. So when I was telling Giancarlo I got this, he's like, no, that is not. No.
Kick you out of the group.
So the first time we went to lunch together, I wore this on purpose. Just
As one should.
Yeah, of course.
Especially funny because you don't care about the team.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, I just like to watch. That's right.
Yeah. And then we go to the not so Rolex family, but Rolex like in the look, which is the Zenith.
Daytona. I mean the
Chronomaster Sport.
Chronomaster Sport, yeah. After searching for a while, Daytona, and again, I refused to pay over retail. Except for the $50 on the Casio. But I'm always trying to find something at retail or below. And so I part of my obsessive compulsive nature, and plus I don't sleep that much, I'm up at night, and I was watching a Facebook forum, and somebody had it listed for a brand new 24 on a no reserve auction. And so I bid on that, and I was able to get it for $5,500. So I was like, hell yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, that's what a dealer's buying it off a person for, than the resell at $2,000-3,000 more.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they were disappointed. That's all it got bid to, right? But no reserve auctions are risky. So, and I love no reserve auctions because you get the right watch that at the right time, you
never
can get great
know.
deals.
Yeah. I used to buy at auction houses for a living.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was one of those, like, sometimes you get back with something like, really? That's what I got that for?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, my favorite deal I've ever gotten was on a Chronomaster Sport.
Really?
Japanese, 1 of 15, Japanese market only, 1 of 15 Chronomaster Sport in white gold.
Wow.
And I got it for like $8,000.
What?
Absolutely insane. And I was just sitting there like, we bought that for what? And sold it for, almost triple. It was one of those.
That's
like
crazy. Yeah.
And still, it's a Panda dial in white gold.
I don't know if I've ever seen it.
1 of 15 out there. I think there's one floating in the States, which is that one I bought.
Wow.
And yeah, the rest were only sold in Japan. And Yoshida, I think is the retailer.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna have a little asterisk there, David correcting me, but it's one of those that just nobody knows unless you went to the store because they made 15 for the store.
Okay.
And happened to get it, and it was beautiful watch, and I love this watch in general.
I think it is. I mean, I love the Daytona. Don't get me wrong, but if I were to look purely on aesthetics, I think this is the prettier watch.
I find the Daytona too small on me.
Really? Yeah, it wears a little small.
It wears small.
And this is a couple, or is it 1 or 2 millimeters bigger? I think that's like a 42, 41. It's a little bigger than the Daytona.
And until recently, the Daytona has a small, if you're an OCD person, it is a design flaw. And it's fixed on the most recent ones. But any earlier edition, the lugs on the bottom aren't symmetrical.
I've heard that. And that would drive me nuts once somebody tells me that, because my OCD would kick in and would bother the hell out of me.
It's not there on the precious metal. It's only on the steel ones.
Okay.
And so it's one of those that once you see that, you're like, I can't not just see a flaw in this case design. And it's been fixed since.
Yeah.
But how it's one of those small things like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Like, why is this here for decades? But you fixed it in the precious metal ones. So it's not like you can't make the case. It
didn't stop their ability to sell them. So,
Fair enough. But in my mind, I like Zenith.
I think it's the most underrated brand, to be honest. When you look at the movement, when you look at the quality and the build, and you look at the history of the watch, the story of how this watch came into existence, they were the Daytona movement for a long time. It's a very, very underrated watch.
I did a whole video on it back in Crown Caliber. It's my favorite video on how the Zenith kind of saved the Daytona and Daytona saved Zenith.
Yeah.
And you're not the only member of the group who absolutely loves Zenith, and it's one of the most underrated brands to them. I think I'm sad I don't have one.
You don't have one now?
No. There's plenty of watches I don't have that I want. So it's up there. I actually want that white gold one.
Yeah, I want to
hunt that one down.
That would be nice.
But that's, on the list. There's a few on front.
Well, it's good to have ones that you want, because it keeps you excited, like, and continually looking. And that's the thing. As a new watch collector, the thing about watches, because I go through phases. It was cars, it was other things. Watches, there is no end. So I can never know enough. So that's why I can't see it stopping, because every time I think I learned something new, I learn, and I'm done, I learn something new, and it just keeps going.
That's exactly why I got in the watches. I was into wine. I was into things like that, where I felt like, oh, I have a pretty strong knowledge here. And then watches, and it's like, oh, which way do I go? There's the history angle. There's the art angle. There's the mechanics angle. Like, once you think you know enough about the history, you probably only know enough about the history of 2 brands.
Yeah.
You don't know about all of them. And then you start getting into just the watchmaking side of it if you're interested in that. And that's an entire career.
Yeah, and I've done the Horticultural Society of New York, the training that we had.
The 101, the 103?
Yeah, 103. And I was bummed I didn't register for 104 because I didn't know that I could do it right after I did the 101 through 103.
Well, hopefully it'll be back next year.
I hope so. It was the most fun 4 hours I think I've had in a long time. And I thought I wasn't going to have the patience to take a watch apart and put it together, but it was so intriguing that I never got impatient. It was just
they're great teachers.
Yeah.
It's and absolutely just, there's so much to learn. And that is the most basic movement, the 6487.
Right.
That is like the starter. It just gets worse in there by the time you get to an El Primero and you start looking at what's behind it. Oh boy.
Yeah.
You get lost.
What's fascinating is how all these gears actually keep the time. Like, because I'm not an engineer, I'm an accountant by trade. So it's like, it fascinates me. And I'll probably never understand it enough, but I do want to learn how to adjust the timing. That's my final 2 goals. How to polish a watch, just because I want to know, which I've been learning on my own with my cheap watches, and but how to adjust it, because timing sometimes get off a little, like, and I'm obsessed. Like, I'm one of those people that gets the atomic watch out, and I set my watches to the atomic time.
We'll
so
talk.
That's obsessive compulsive again. All right,
but yeah, we'll talk on that later on what you should and shouldn't do on that.
Yeah.
Speaking of ones that you shouldn't do that to, Rolex, free sprung balance, not one you want to touch, which is what they have in there. So we have the Bruce Wayne,
yes,
the 126710,
love it,
digits afterwards for the Bruce Wayne version. Black and gray. I just did a video kind of comparing this one to my 1967, 1675, and how they've changed over 6 decades. But what brought you to this GMT? Well,
all right. So the reason I wanted it was because it was new and not a lot of people had it. Again, so I tend to like what is rare. It just tends to be my style. But I also liked it because I felt like it would be a good everyday watch. Like I could wear it with everything. But I couldn't get it from an AD, even though I had relationships with ADs. There are people who spend way more than
Trust
I do.
me. Yep.
But a friend of mine had gotten one from an AD, and he had an original. I don't know what year it was from, maybe 1970. And he's like, you know what? I think I like my older one. He's like, do you want to buy this for me? So he sold it to me at his cost. So he bought it from an AD. So I bought it at retail, basically.
And that's a good friend.
Yes.
I will say.
He could have made a lot of money on it.
Yeah, but if you don't need to,
right,
and you want to make sure that somebody appreciates it and has it, the sell it and be like at cost of what it cost you is one. It's the cool thing to do.
It was really nice of him because he knew I was looking for it. And here's the amazing thing about the watch community. So number one, I did not realize how many men were collectors. And so, in my business, I take clients out a lot, and we'll talk about hobbies, and I'll say I'm a watch collector. They'll go, oh, me too. And I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that. And that's actually how I learned about the Watch Society. But it's a kind community. It's people with a common interest, like from all different backgrounds, from all over the world. And I love that. Right. And so it's such an amazing, and the Watch Society has done a great job pulling people together. And I think that's amazing.
I am amazed the first meeting I ever went to of a watch group, and to this day, how nice everybody is, how it doesn't matter what you come with. I don't care if you come with a Timex and a G-Shock or if you show up with an MB&F. Everyone's there to just geek out over a watch because everyone has that G-Shock. Because honestly, this G-Shock will get more attention than that Rolex probably.
It does.
It's purely like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Also cool, but this is new.
Right.
And this is fun. And it has nothing to do with
the cost.
It has nothing to do with how much money you have, or it has to do with a passion. And unfortunately, because it's a luxury hobby, some of it's just going to cost.
Right.
But it's about the passion and love of just something interesting.
Yeah.
We're all geeking out for whatever reason that brought us to watches.
Well, if you think about it, for men, there are few things that tend to bring men into hobbies, like bourbons, wine,
bourbon drinkers,
guns, cars, and then there's watches. And from a jewelry perspective, it's really the only thing that we change out a lot that can affect. And so it doesn't matter the price. It really matters. Do you like it? And does it look good?
Yep.
But I'll be honest, I went to the first Atlanta Watch Society event, and I met the group because I'm on the board of our advisory board for Make-A-Wish, and the gentleman's wearing this gorgeous watch. And I said, what is it? And it was a rose gold 50 fathoms. It was gorgeous.
Okay.
And I'm like, I've just started collecting. He's like, oh, you should check out the Atlanta Watch Society.
Yeah.
So he sent an email, and the group has been blowing up, right? So I couldn't get into an event. And then kind of last minute, there was a cancellation. I got invited to go to the H. Moser.
Oh, and which is also one of our biggest. So thankfully.
It was huge. Okay, so now I do business development, but I got there and I was intimidated because a lot of people already knew each other. They're talking about watches, and I know it tells time. Right. So I'm standing in the corner, like kind of flipping through the brochure. I'm texting my wife, well, maybe I'm going to go soon. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to go talk to people before I leave. And once I put myself out there, everybody was so kind. And I look like I'm missing several events because I'm traveling over the next couple months, and I am very disappointed. And I have an amazing wife because now she's into it. And we haven't even talked about the groups I administer on Facebook. So we can get to that too in the last, year.
Well, I will say, talking about yes, it is very men heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, watch collecting, not watch sales, but watch collecting tends to be very male heavy. But we also have quite a few women in the group, thankfully. And I say that because my wife's in it too.
Yeah.
And my wife is as hardcore collector as I am.
She is definitely as passionate as you are.
It's one of those that, and it's as open. I say as open because we have such a selection of age, income, race. It's just a open group of just bring your passion.
Right.
If you have that, you're good. And I can't think of one person who we don't all enjoy hanging out with.
It's truly a phenomenal group of people. It's unbelievable. And there's the WhatsApp chat group, and I cannot believe how kind everybody is in that group. Mm-hmm. Somebody gets a new watch, and the number of congratulations that you get, and it's a very sometimes I have to turn notifications off because there's so much chat going on.
I try to keep up with that one. I'm part of another group that's international that I have to ignore most times because our group is kind of, and we have an international portion to our group too, but it's just, I can only keep up with ours.
and it's busy, but I just can't believe how active it is. So anyways, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off tangent, but yeah.
So on to the next one, which is actually the watch I remember seeing you with first, which is the other Rolex, the ultimate dive watch from Rolex, the Deep Sea.
It's James Cameron.
Because we'll ignore the ultra deep. That thing's just silly.
Yeah.
Really just silly. The James Cameron Deep Sea. We call it, I mean, it's James Cameron's kind of backed in. It's the gradient blue, the black dial, which is beautiful. It's the rarer version. Do you like the rare ones?
I do, yes.
And well, you've bought that twice, you've said.
Yeah. So when I first started looking at watches, I heard how hard it is to get them from ADs. And so I walked into an AD and I met somebody and he was super nice. And within 2 weeks, I bought a Datejust green motif dial. I was like, okay. And everybody said, you got to buy something. And I don't know how true it was, but I liked it. So I was like, okay.
That's not a bad one to start with. It's not the hardest or easiest to get. It's one of those that sometimes it's in the case.
Yeah. And my deal is if I do buy a watch from an AD, typically I do not resell it because I'm buying those to keep. And I want to know I got them originally from the AD and have that history with it. But so literally a month later, I got a call about the James Cameron. And so I'm like, why is everybody complaining about how hard it is to get a watch, right? So I bought the James Cameron. So I had it, and then I fell in love. I was in Naples, Florida, and went into a watch store called Exquisite Watches down in Naples. If you ever have a chance, it's an amazing store. And I learned about resins, those watches. And I'm like, I want one of those. And I became obsessed with getting one of those.
Now, that's again appreciating the rare stuff, or the unusual stuff, I should say.
So I'm like, well, I got to buy and sell watches. Now I'm getting impatient. So I ended up selling my Deep Sea, which I immediately regretted. I love the resins, but I loved the Deep Sea. So buying and selling watches throughout, I was able to quickly rebuy the Deep Sea. So this is the newest version that is no longer called part of the Sea Dweller group. It's the Deep Sea.
Yeah.
So I love it. That's a watch I'll never get rid of either. It's heavy, it's big, it's thick, and I love it.
I'd say it's just keep getting bigger as we go too.
Yeah. It does, yeah.
Price tag and size as we go.
Well, we missed my Italian journey with U-Boat, where
those are pretty big.
And Panerai. So those were all really big. And now I still love Panerai. I just didn't like the one I got ultimately because it was really hard the lume was light and it was gray on gray. It was one of the Navy SEAL ones.
Yep.
And I just didn't enjoy looking at, being able to read it, but I love the watch. So Panerai's back on my list.
Panerai's are great. I don't, those are ones where I don't understand how people who have 20 of them or like that.
Right.
No, you can have one. They're great. They all look similar.
So they'll be back on my list, but they were all really big. And then I went back down a little bit in sizes because the Tudor is 39 millimeters, which I swore I'd never buy, but it wears great. So
I have the Heritage Black Bay, which is the big one. And I love the way that feels. So I understand Tudor in general just feels great. The Black Bay 58 is probably the sweet spot that everybody likes. Because I will say the original Heritage Black Bay is a bit big. 41, but it's tall.
Okay.
It's like 13 and a half, 14 Yeah, it's a tall boy. But anyway, so that brings us to your 46 millimeter, I think.
That wears small.
Very small. Because it has almost no lugs.
No, the lug just drop off.
And no crown.
And the band curves right up against it. And it is truly my favorite watch.
The Ressence Type 5 dive watch.
Yes, and it's the L that just came out in June of this year.
L for lume.
The whole dial is illuminated.
Whole dial is lume. And we can throw up the picture we have of that.
It is a super cool watch. And for me, it's an engineering feat. I mean, it's filled with oil that gives it that refractive property, so the dial looks like it's sitting
right up top. Yeah,
and just the way they use the magnet system to connect the part that's with the oil with the movement underneath. It's just phenomenal.
It's ridiculous. And, there's a video of that that just came out too. So check that out if you want to see the deep dive into Ressence and that watch, because it deserves its full 10-minute time just to talk about that one in the system.
It's just amazing. And you'll look at it first, you're like, that's too complicated to read, but honestly, it's a lot faster than a regular watch once you get used to it.
It's actually very similar to what's called a regulator watch.
Yeah.
Hour, minute, and second are separate.
Yeah.
So they're all in their own planes. And once you just get used to the fact that it spins around the dial too, it's pretty quick to read.
Yeah, it is.
I always say, like, once you see a time lapse of it going around, it's like, oh, okay. Like, you see it really quickly in action. You're like, oh, that makes complete sense.
Right.
Easy to read, complete unique. And that's that little orbital system that they've done has been since day one. The oil system came afterwards, but day one that you had that. That's been the Ressence look.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's beautiful and it's unique.
They make some beautiful watches. This is my third one. So the one I bought when I got rid of that, I had a black Type 3, and I had but what I really wanted, we don't have to go to the whole story why I bought the black, but the black I bought on an auction at an incredible price. And then the white was what I really wanted. And then this came out, and I'm like, ooh, I want that. And so sold the other two and now have this. So it's there's that part of that buying and selling journey, right?
So as we've gone through what's here in the past, it's weird to say the past year. That's a very quick journey in a year for any collector. Like, that is the full dive in head first. What do you think's been the biggest change in collecting for you in that year?
That's a great question. I think I have number one, I have a better appreciation for why movements matter. Mm-hmm. Like, at first I'm like, people are like, well, I like that watch, but that's a ETA, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, who cares? I like the watch, right? Like, who cares about it? But as I'm learning more, I have a better appreciation for what the movement and the engineering go into the watches. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big change. The size variation has also been, I was committed that I had to have 42 and above, but now I've learned that it's all how it wears.
Hard rules are usually the first thing to break.
Yeah.
Because there shouldn't be.
The part that's becoming harder for me is, as I'm learning more and more about watches, is that I'll find a watch I like a lot, but then I'm like, well, is it worth getting this one? Because I like this one over here better. And so now
the opportunity cost becomes the question.
So now it's becoming more of a challenge to decide what's next. The only watch I regret ever getting rid of was the AP. And so that, if I can get there through this process, I would want to get an AP.
Okay. So, the Royal Oak.
Yeah, the Royal Oak. I liked it more than I thought I did at the time. And I would even do, and I know this is controversial, but I would even do the offshore, because I like the offshore as well. Some people don't like the offshore, but I like it.
The offshore is just a bigger, if you like a bigger watch, it's great. Yeah. I don't know why the offshore should get any hate. It's just purely a larger design.
And those you can get at great prices. So that's, so that's probably why that'll be the next one on the list. And again, I like bigger watches. So
yeah, if you like bigger watches, offshore is a great watch. In fact, I think it's for the price compared to a Royal Oak, because you can get so much less.
Right.
Might be better for the cost.
Yeah, I agree. And
controversial opinion for some, but.
And my ultimate goal is to have watches that I like, but I would like to have watches from the Trinity, right? So I'd like I can never say it right, Patek. I want an AP, and I'd like a BC. So, and I only say BC because I can't pronounce it.
Yeah,
because I can't pronounce it. So, so I would eventually like to have one of each in my collection.
Do you have one of each you want?
Yes.
Which?
So, all right, let me see if I can get the names correct. So the Patek, I would like the I'm gonna forget the name. The most popular
Nautilus, Aquanaut.
Nautilus. Okay, so I'd want a Nautilus.
Time only?
I don't know. That would depend. But there are other ones that I really like. some of the like perpetual ones that they have and others. So there are other ones that I really like
Different
as
style
well.
between the sports and those classic dress.
And again, because I tend to like what other people don't have as much of, I may end up leaning towards one of those.
You end up with an ellipse or something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because it's like, again, everybody has. I like having some that everybody has, but I also like some that are stand out and unique. The AP, there are a lot that I like. So I like the rose gold with the black dial offshore. I like the 26331, the Royal Oak chrono. But I'm also a big fan of the code, and I know that's another controversial one. I like their blue ombre dial with rose gold. I like the chronograph version. I think it's gorgeous.
The code's gone through some iterations throughout the year. It's kind of gone from the everyone. I think if you're honest with yourself, everyone likes the case. Everyone appreciates the movement. It's always the dial that just doesn't seem like it fits.
Yeah,
but they've gotten better.
Yeah, the blue ombre dial or the ombre dials on that with the chrono are stunning. So that would, so again, I know I want to get an offshore or a Royal Oak. I mean, but I still may want to get a code too.
What about a VC?
So the what's it? The offshore? I forget. The
overseas.
Overseas. Sorry, yeah, I get it confused. The overseas would be. That's the one I know the most about, but I have not done as much homework on them because I don't hear as much about them. Like them, and I mentioned to you, like you.
Oh, you gotta hang around me more because I'll just never talk. I'll never stop talking about.
All right, we'll have to. I have to learn more about them, and even like I asked you today about Cartier. Like it's not been on my radar, but I know they have some beautiful watches and some beautiful things out there.
Oh,
and so
that's
I'm just
its own. Especially if you want to start learning about vintage Cartier, then it's a different beast. Though they're all small, so you may not have to worry about those.
That I don't like. So I was looking at them yesterday. I was looking at the Tank. Is that the thinner one?
Yep.
Didn't fit me well. I looked at the JLC Reverso. They're too tiny for me. But there are some GLCs that I love too.
Get you a JLC Squadra.
Pardon?
Get JLC Squadra. We'll get you.
I don't know that one.
Oh, you won't. I'll show it to you later.
Okay. I've been looking at the Polaris.
From the early 2000s. They're big squares.
Oh, really?
Oh, they're huge. Yeah.
I have to see what that looks like.
Oh, yeah. That's a Reverso that's like built for a larger, someone likes larger watches.
Really?
Yeah. They have not made them in years, which actually makes them easier to find as far as price goes. They're actually a very niche product. But
I think that's an underrated watch, JLC. I think the finishes on them are phenomenal. I don't know as much about the movement, but I think from a fit and finish.
But you ever hear the term watchmaker's watchmaker?
Yeah, I've heard
from
them to say that about that.
Because they make the movements for everybody.
Okay.
The fun fact to them is that they've made about 1,000 movements. The next closest is Patek with 600 something. And the average watch brand has only made 2 or 3.
Really?
They make it for everybody. There was a time where if you bought a Nautilus, a Royal Oak, or an Overseas, you bought it with a JLC movement in it.
So why are they so underappreciated in the market?
They didn't make their own watches as much.
Okay.
They made it for everyone else. And even when they started making their own, it's just it was never the main focus. They're the guys that were behind the scenes make it for everybody else.
I will tell you, I love the Polaris, and their perpetual is beautiful. Like so, the rose gold perpetual is with the blue ombre. Notice I like blue a lot. The blue ombre dial is beautiful.
So now we're going to move on to what I call the watch questionnaire.
Okay.
Which is based off the Proust questionnaire. If you're a literary nerd,
I'm not. So it's I will follow whatever you do.
Quick questionnaire to get into the heart of who you are as a watch collector.
Oh, no. Okay.
So meant as quick, rapid fire answers.
Okay.
These are one word or one sentence answers just to get what your opinion is on something.
Gotcha.
So, do you remember what your very first watch was?
Yes.
What?
The Casio calculator watch.
That's awesome. First luxury watch.
Is Tag considered luxury?
I would.
All right. So the Tag.
We got Tag Professional Aqua Racer right here. Good start. Favorite watch complication?
I like perpetuals a lot. So I would probably say a perpetual complication.
Fair. All right. Biggest watch regret?
Selling my AP Royal Oak.
All right. Though it did start and fund a lot.
It did fund a lot of fun journey, but I do miss that watch.
Advice you'd give to a new watch collector?
Follow your passion. I think make sure you only buy what you can afford. Set limits because it can very quickly creep up on you if you start to really get into it. But Number one is we're here talking about watches and movements and all these other things. At the end of the day, buy what you like. You have to feel comfortable wearing it. It has to represent who you are. And again, as you mentioned, your style will change over time. So don't overcommit up front, right? Just, start.
Don't overcommit up front.
Okay. Do as I say, not as I do.
Okay.
So, but if you're asking for advice, I would say take it a little slower maybe than I did.
All right. Date window, yes or no?
Yes.
Date window at 4:30, yes or no?
Date window 4:30.
Like on the Zenith El Primero.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yes. I like it.
All right.
I like the date window, so regardless.
Favorite type of watch strap?
Ooh.
I should say strap or bracelet first.
In general, bracelet.
And then favorite type of watch strap.
I would say a Jubilee.
Well, like rubber, leather.
So it depends on the watch. So like on the Rolex, I like the rubber.
Mhm.
On the Ressence, this is a synthetic leather. And then I like any other leather watches, I tend to like age or vintage looking leather straps. I don't like lizard or alligator or any of those.
And Jubilee for a bracelet's your favorite.
Jubilee for the bracelet.
Oh.
I know that's controversial too, because some people really like the oyster better, but I like the
I think they're both great. It's purely a taste.
Yeah. I think it's more dressy with the
certainly with the Jubilee, yeah. Our watch is jewelry.
Yes.
No wrong answer. I just find that interesting how people think about that.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a wrong answer there.
Yeah, I think just because that's what I've always perceived it to be. I think it's more than that, but yes.
Favorite material for a watch case?
Favorite that I have or favorite that I just think in general?
Just you think is cool.
I think rose gold is beautiful.
Right.
I don't have one, but I think rose gold is.
That's, that has to be on the list.
Yeah.
Quick thought about watch meetups.
I love them. They're again, best community in the world. All different people, all different backgrounds with a common interest. And most people are just there to learn.
All right. Thoughts on microbrands?
Love microbrands. I love the uniqueness. I have one coming in, the Inverso from Radcliffe. I don't know if you've seen that. It's similar to the MB&F watch. So that was a Kickstarter project. So I'm waiting for that to come in. I think it'll be kind of cool. But again, if it's different, I'll probably at least want to look at it or try it.
Quick word association with brands.
Okay.
Rolex.
Popularity.
Omega.
History, Moon.
G-Shock.
Tough watches.
Zenith.
Underrated, high quality movement.
Moser.
Beautiful dials. Beautiful dials.
Richard Mille.
What do you mean by that?
Richard Mille.
I don't know what that means.
Perfect answer.
Oh, that brand.
Yeah.
Oh, there's only one that I like. Sorry. This is where I don't even know how to pronounce things. If you had written it in front of me, I would have known. There's a one with a skull. Mm-hmm. That's the only one I like. But everything else to me is just way too ostentatious for my taste.
Fair. Longines.
Gorgeous watches. Not my favorite dials though.
Fair enough. Watch brand that's doing it right.
So it depends on what you mean by right. So if I look at a micro brand,
what you believe it's doing.
So I think I'm going to give you a multi-part answer. So if I look at a micro brand that's doing it right, it's Christopher Ward because they've really built themselves into a high quality, high reputable brand.
Fair.
Rolex, obviously from a marketing and from a value creation and value retention, it would be Rolex. From a ingenuity, it has to be Ressence.
Okay. Best kind of watch collector.
Somebody who's not arrogant and appreciates all different types of watches regardless of the prices. And somebody who's willing to share what they know and they're also willing to learn more.
Worst kind of watch collector.
Ego. And it's all about the flash of the watch, not the story or why they want it.
Favorite style of watch.
Dive watch.
Drink of choice.
Diet Coke.
Not wrong.
I'm an addict. All right.
And finally, what is your Grail watch?
So Grail, wow. There's so many that are on that Grail list. So a Yachtmaster Falcon Eye, a Meteorite GMT, a Patek, whatever you say, any one of those, honestly. And I even kind of like the new ones, even though they look a lot like the Cartier.
The Cubitus.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, if you ask me criticism on it, it's number one criticism I have about it's the name. It's a dumb name.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. but I, again, it would be different today than what everybody else has. So that's probably why I like it. But the Grail list is long, right? So it's
always a moving target.
That'll be a lifetime journey to, get to what I consider I have my Grail. And I don't know if I ever achieve it, right? Because as soon as I think I have my Grail, I'll find something else.
Personal opinions, when people say Grail watch and it's attainable, it's not a Grail.
Right.
The Holy Grail is not attainable.
Right. Yeah.
So it should be just outside of that.
But the Falcon Eye is not really attainable.
But then again, you never know.
You never know. But they are hard. The Meteorite, white gold.
We have one or two in the group.
Do we? They're gorgeous. I mean, I just think they're cool watches. Again, the more, the rarer they are, the more I'm going to tend to like it. I'm not one of those that like the watches where I go, oh yeah, you're wearing the same watch as me. I like when it's different.
Oh, you just get yourself a one of one.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it was funny you say that because when I was really into U-boat, they were going to make me a custom watch, and because I was really into U-boat for a while, and so, but eventually I would like to have my own design one-on-one.
Hey, if you become part of a brand long enough, they'll make it for you.
Yeah, it seems like they will. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes, depending on the brand, that can be a long journey. But
well, that's okay. Like even like one that I love that I just am too impatient for is Anardane. I mean, their watches are dialed. Dials are beautiful. They just can't produce them fast enough. I think you have one, maybe. I don't know.
I have one, and I have another one coming in the next 6 months.
And how long did you wait for that one?
3 years.
Yeah. See, I'm too impatient.
Wow. Yep. I mean,
I may not be interested in.
They're
it 3 years from
beautiful.
now, right? Yeah, like.
I would say I don't regret waiting, being on the list, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, what I respect about you is you're truly a collector, right? You're keeping them, and I'm part of the reason I'm probably buying and selling so much is that like a lot of the watches I mentioned, I didn't get to see before I actually got them because some of them didn't have ADs here. Yeah. So it's been exploration part of it for me, and I do find myself settling in a little bit more. So I think you'll see less trading and more keeping as we go forward. But
how we collect changes.
But it's really cool to have the experience. Like, when I bought my Ressence, I saw it briefly in the store, but I never really looked at it again. And so this one I'd never seen and bought it sight unseen. So it's just, there's that risk that you take when you're sometimes buying ones that you've never tried on.
It's amazing to buy that watch sight unseen. At least you had Ressence before that. But still, that's a funny. All right. Well, I think with that, we've pretty much covered everything.
That's great.
Covered your collection, how you've gotten here. And I'm excited to see where you are a year or two from now, to see how things stayed the same and how things changed.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's going to be an interesting journey.
It will definitely be fun. So we'll have to talk again probably in a year and see what's happened.
I'd be curious to see how much changed in a year.
That would be awesome.
Thank
you so much. This was fun.
Oh, no problem.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
have a good
everybody.
one.
Bye.